Hey ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. My name is KPZ. You are here on the home of the slightly above average ship review. I have a ship that I was very eagerly waiting for. As those of you who are regulars to my channel know, I am a Russian battleship enjoyer. It's a guilty pleasure, really. When you're sending those stellinium shells downrange, you just kind of have to chuckle when you destroy the heck out of something. The Kremlin is very good at destroying stuff if you play it correctly. It also may be, based on what I'm reading, a ship that could have never really been built. I am going to let the video play. I find the history of the ship much more interesting than my own gameplay. So, watch and enjoy. It's a crack and fail game. And I am going to read to you about the Kremlin. Okay, first of all, wargaming propaganda. The development of the new Project 24 commenced in 1941. The project's requirement included dual-purpose artillery instead of secondary guns, enhanced torpedo protection, and reinforced protection of the ship's fore and aft ends. The ship's designation was to destroy surface ships of all types in the open sea and near coastal areas. In 1950, Variant 12 of the project was approved. However, the country lacked a shipyard to construct a 70,000-ton displacement ship. Houston, we have a problem. That's not actually the displacement of the ship. The state authorities, state meaning the Soviet state, had also lost interest in large surface ships by that time. It's a Tier 10 premium battleship on PC. Other notes from PC. Pros, highest hit point pool in the game, well armored, extremely good dispersion at close to medium ranges. We all know that about Russian guns. AA suite rivals that of some light tier high cruisers if spec'd properly. Good concealment relative to the peers. Well-protected main battery turrets, second after Yamato. Massive alpha strike of armor piercing. Excellent rudder shift, maybe. Cons, short main battery firing range, long reload. AA suite is easily disabled by HE. Second largest battleship in the game. Does not have the bow of the GK, so it can be penned through the bow. Although impossible to Citadel, at least on PC, through the bow, due to a 100 millimeter armor deck in the bow. I wish I'd read this before I'd gone through the armor. Turning circle, we'll cover that later. Large Citadel, yes, it's possible. Limited damage cons. Anyway, that's somewhat all factual. Per Wikipedia, Project 24 is a battleship. Construction began in 1950. Here's where it differs from wargaming. It says the displacement, 81,150 tons. That's TONNES. It says two planned for 1955, still in design phase and canceled after Stalin's death. That is according to Stephen McLaughlin's Russian and Soviet Battleships Reissued Naval Institute Press Hardcover Edition, Annapolis Institute Press. I have no idea if that's still in print or available. Let me check on the game real quick. All right, look, nothing's happened, so you haven't really missed anything except for me getting set on fire. Don't worry, business is going to pick up here shortly. All right, back to the more entertaining stuff. 6 years ago on the World of Warships Reddit, from which I'm now banned from all Reddits, apparently, Queen of the North 44 says, Kremlin isn't just a paper ship, it's madness given form. It cannot exist on this planet. No one could build a ship to this design. It's a simple matter of physics. No hyperbole here. Kremlin, as you know, is armored to the damned gills, like obscene amounts of armor. Blah, blah, blah. Do you understand how much a few hundred feet of 10 millimeter thick armor weighs? And ships have to be careful with that weight to make sure it's distributed right, balanced, and behaves well with hydrodynamics, and is seaworthy. If you find pictures of the Project 24 BB designs, one of which is the title card of this video, it's basically 4 walls holding up the whole thing, and that's it. Imagine building a skyscraper that is only supported by 4 walls all the way up. Kind of dangerous, right? Wasn't the World Trade Center buildings supported like that? Maybe. Maybe. Now slap a few thousand tons of steel on top of the roof of said skyscraper in the form of very heavy gun turrets, barbette superstructure, and a 60 millimeter weather deck. Now tilt said building back and forth, say 1 meter side to side, to simulate a very gentle sea roll. What do you think is going to happen? Basically, he said if you built the ship, it would break apart and collapse under its own weight, or if you fired the guns, the ship would capsize, or the liners and the rifling of the guns would shoot out after the first shell. And I don't necessarily agree with that. But the turret weight, he's saying, is just prohibitively physically impossible. Like physics, not that you can build a turret of that weight. Hey, I think I killed a cruiser. Obviously, as a Soviet ship, your number one target should always be cruisers because they have a weak, soft armor scheme. There's that enemy Kremlin. We'll have to play with him later. Oh, he's using HE. What a pussy. I'm using armor piercing, baby. All right, here's a rune. I still have more to talk about, but for right now, we're going to actually pay attention to the game a little bit. As you can see, the Kremlin has a massive health pool of 102,500 hit points with our build. It doesn't have a lot of heals, so you got to use those heals judiciously. Same thing with the damage cons. I would only use them for 2 fires. All right, Rune, can we get that kill? Yes. Kill number 2. All right, there is Kremlina running away. And there's a Yamato off to our port bow, just near that rock. Back to the notes. This is from nationalinterest.org. During World War II, the Soviet Navy was a distant third in priorities behind the Red Army and the Red Air Force. The Navy had a very limited role. It was clear to Stalin by mid-1945 that with Germany gone, his most powerful rivals, ironically his allies during World War II, the USSR and the UK were out of reach of his armies, and so was Japan, which the USSR didn't even get to occupy. And they have history going back to the 1900s, the Sino-Japanese War. Blah, blah, blah. He said, hey, we got to pump up the Navy. So even though battleships were obsolete and aircraft carriers were the new hotness, Stalin didn't like aircraft carriers and preferred battleships instead. And so he overruled a proposal to build aircraft carriers. What a genius. And instead directed the Navy to complete construction of the battleship Sovetskaya Russia, which was laid down in 1940 and was still less than 1% complete at the end of WW2. He also directed the Navy to build 2 Project 24, and now here's another discrepancy in the weight, 75,000 ton battleships. They just spelled it ton, not TONNES. And 7 Project 82 Stalingrad class battle cruisers displacing 36 5,000 tons and equipped with 9 12-inch guns. He only approved 2 light carriers, a useless number considering the superiority of the American and British fleets. Well, that is a very nice compliment. All right, checking back on the match. We are up to 147k damage. What can I say? This ship is really good at doing damage. I was going to shoot at the enemy Kremlin because it looks like he is turning, but I can't see anything. And instead, I'm just going to wait for Yamato to come around the corner. And I'm going to stop reading history because sometimes you got to wait for the enemy to come to you, and I'm guessing the Yamato thought he had to push the action here. But, dude, did you forget the Kremlin was over here? I mean, yes, I don't have your 18-inch guns, but this is still a very powerful ship. Oh, very tempting to shoot the Stalingrad because I know I smacked him around earlier. But Yamato is going to keep forging forward. His turrets aren't even turned my way, and I am going to light him up right here. The big kaboom. 3 hits the Citadel. Killed number 3 for Kremlin, and we are up to 190k damage. Now, I may have fucked the end of it up. I should have shot right there. I should have. Oh, I'm not reloaded yet. Look at that. His aim was shitty. He just knocked out my steering. I should have shot at the Kremlin. Instead, I shot at the Stalingrad because I thought it would be an easy kill, and I was correct. But I should have shot at Kremlin instead. We did kill Stalingrad, but we only got like 1,000 points of damage. Maybe if that. And so there are 2 ships left. Let's go back to the history real quick. The Soviet Union had never had much large shipbuilding capability. It had been delayed during the Great Patriotic War. That's the Russian Revolution. Blah, blah, blah. The war had done great damage to the country's industrial capacity, not to mention a lot of the men were dead or on the battlefield. It says the 75,000-ton battleships were never constructed, and only 2 of the 7 battlecruisers began construction. Stalin died in 1953, and all that stuff went out the window. But there was a rumor of 7 new super battleships nicknamed K-1000, and they just basically copied the names from the Sovietsky Soyuz class. 9 to 12 16-inch guns or 12 18-inch guns, and it was just a hoax that the Soviet Union encouraged the spreading of. So anyway, basically when they kind of destroyed or didn't finish the Nikolai, they really didn't have a lot of other battleships, and there went my chance for a Kraken because I couldn't get the reload in time. All right, anyway, I hope I showed you some good long-range shooting from the Kremlin. Here we are on the victory screen, 194,085 total damage, 4 kills, 8 hits to Citadel, and a solo base cap. We ended up with 588,404 silver, 7,500 ship XP, and 18,000 commander XP, helmed by Soviet Russia. We are top of the board, 3288 base XP, 4 big kills, officially a good game. The Kremlin is definitely my kind of shit. Definitely my kind of shit. All right, back into the port here. Let's take a look at the upgrades. We went with Aiming System Mod 1. Damage Control System Mod 2. Concealment System Mod 1. And Main Battery Mod 3. In terms of the loadout, you've got high explosive and much more effective armor piercing. 5 charges of the damage control party with our build. Just 2 charges of the repair party. And 3 charges of a really useless enhanced secondary targeting. I really wish I could swap that out for DFAA. All right, we run the Epic Commander XP, the Epic Global XP, the Epic Credit Booster, and the Epic Battle Booster for main battery range and movement speed. Project 24 Premium Camouflage and the Beta Weekend #1 flag. I think they changed that. I think that was just the Beta Weekend flag or something. I don't remember it having a #1 on the end there. And now that I've discovered there was a second Beta Weekend and I wasn't invited to it, I'm very disappointed. All right, what was I doing? Was I looking at the specs? All right. As discussed, 102,500 hit points, 51% torpedo damage reduction, 48% fire resistance. With our build main battery, 3 444 57mm turrets, 17.9 kilometer firing range, 29.7 second reload time, 35.3 second turn time with our build, shell grouping value of 1.8, dispersion all slightly better. HE shells just 6,500 max damage, but a really nice 45% fire chance. Armor pen, 76 millimeters on those HE shells. AP shells do 15,225 max damage. The armor pen at point blank range, 857.2 millimeters, and at max range, 559.4 millimeters. As you can see with our build, the ricochet angles are greatly increased, and the fuse arming threshold is 76 millimeters. All right, secondary armament, 8 twin 130 millimeter emplacements. They fire out to 5.2 kilometers. Reload every 4 seconds. The shell grouping value is 1. Dispersion all slightly better. HE shells do 1,800 max damage with an 8% fire chance, and they pen 22 millimeters of armor. AA defense, boy, that's a really healthy number. Your best AA is that 45 millimeter 12 by 4 emplacements that do 297 damage per second. And the longest reaching AA is your 130 millimeter dual purpose guns, which shoot out to 5.7 kilometers. Maneuverability, 30.4 knots in the water. Is that just short of being a fast battleship? 1,090 meter turning circle. I think that is the same as the Poltava, if I'm not mistaken. Rudder shift time 16.3, so I guess that's good for a ship of this size. Concealment 13.3 on the surface, 11.1 from the air, and 16 should you find yourself in a smokescreen. All right, taking a look at the stats. We played 3 matches in the Kremlin. Main battery accuracy of 35%, averaging 1.3 kills and 95k damage per match. But obviously the last match you saw was pretty nice, so it may skew those stats slightly. All right, here's the armor viewer. Above water citadel, and I'm going to stupidly hit this button and go sorting through here, and then realize, oh, wait a minute, I'm on the casemate armor and not the citadel armor. All right, there we go. Armor belt ranges between 410 and 430 millimeters. Putting the bow back on, you got a 32 millimeter bow with a bow plate that ranges from 60 to 150 millimeters. I'm looking at the wrong end of the ship, so just ignore that. Turrets and barbettes, the turrets and turret faces, are heavily sloped. The barbettes are heavily armored. Now I realized my mistake. So that's pretty nice. Again, very heavy armor on the turrets. Torpedo protection also includes the underwater portion of that armor belt. So whether or not it's true what that guy was saying, the ship would flip over if it actually fired its guns, I mean, who knows? But it's got a lot of armor. That is the armor profile of the Kremlin. Taking a look at the sometimes very misleading overview screen, tough, above average hit points, check. Ironclad, above average armor thickness, check. Big guns, check. I guess it's all technically true. Here's our commander, the fully max Savitskaya Rossiya. I think that's her full name. Frozen Edge decreases the fire chance by 6% and decreases your detectability by 4%, which is better than I thought it would be. We got Ciliax for AP shell damage and Von Essen for ricochet angle. Row 1 went with not the 1 for nuisance. More risk of fire chance being reduced. Number 2, I went with Dance with Death, which increases your reload and turret traverse as you lose more hit points. I just don't think on second thought is a good choice. And Crisscross, I mean, you're just going to have to decide which one you like better. I chose Dance with Death. Row 3, I went with Volunteer for more damage control charges. Obviously, you only have 5, and that's including 2 from Volunteer. You could make one of these other choices, but I don't think it's as good as Volunteer. In row 4, the unique skill Battle Cry, more ricochet angle changes, and we deal more damage, 10% with Citadel strikes. So that's a pretty nice 4th row skill. Our legendary skill, of course, was fight fire with fire. Anyway, that's the Kremlin, ladies and gentlemen. Like, comment, subscribe down below. Love to hear what you think. Let me know in the comments.